Welcome to another episode of No Slides Attached. I'm Fede Pacheco, and I'm excited to officially kick off our industry series today. How are you doing, Helene?
Hey, Fede. I'm also super excited to be here and to learn so much about the innovation that's taking place across all of our different industry segments. Today, we're kicking it off with a really big one, financial services.
That's right. And in this new episode format, I'm really excited about what we're doing because we really want to showcase the partner story first and foremost, the story of their success, what they've been doing, how they see the world in AI. And then we do what I like to call the post-game show. So we're going to sit down with one or two experts and just analyze, the highlights, what they said, what resources can the listener go to if they're as excited as we all usually get after our partner conversation. So if you want to build a practice in an industry that we're talking about, you make sure to stay a little longer. Today, we're planning to do that right after the conversation. So Helene, who do we have as our guest today?
So, Fede, today our guest is Zafin. They're an industry leader in driving bank modernization and transformation, and also one of our finalists in our latest Microsoft Partner of the Year awards for the financial industry in Canada.
Yeah, we're excited to have Chris Dickin here. He's the EVP, Executive Vice President of Global Partner Strategy at Zafin. So he's not that far up north either. I'm in Seattle. Chris, you're in beautiful Vancouver, Canada, and you also have quite a few decades of experience in the banking and financial industry. So the AI revolution has definitely not been your first rodeo, but we're excited that you're here and that we get to pick your brain on this one.
Fede, Helene, nice to be here with you. I'm excited to share our thoughts and where we're heading towards.
That's awesome. We do like to warm up our guests a little bit, and given that everybody's prompting these days in their co-pilots, would love to know what is your favorite prompt and what is the one that like you really go to, whether it's at work or in your personal life that you couldn't live without these days.
I think I'll move towards a offline prompt. I think one of the key things that we don't do enough of is ask ourselves about each other. And so one of my favorite questions is, tell me about your life story. How and what events have made you become who you are today? I think a lot of people love to talk about themselves, but we also don't ask about each other enough. And so this is one of those where you can actually get people to talk about themselves and how to become who they are today.
I love that personal nature of how you're using it. But we are going to jump into some business, okay? So tell us a little bit about Zafin IO. I understand IO stands for integration and orchestration. You've built a wonderful cloud native SaaS solution for core modernization. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and why did you focus on that as your key value proposition?
Absolutely. Let me just tell a little bit of a story here. One of the things that we have found by talking to banks over the last few decades is that there is a product innovation movement or wave today. And so what you find today is a lot of the business lines going to their technical or executives or the CIOs and saying, knocking on their doors and saying, hey, I need to be able to innovate on a product and proposition standpoint. And the challenge then becomes, well, my systems are a limitation to be able to do that. And that's because banks are using 40 or 50-year-old systems to be able to do what is called create a new product or a new proposition that they can then sell into the market. And so that's when the interesting discussions start to happen. Now, our platform modernizes the way that banks do product propositions and pricing innovation in the market. But then the flip side of all this is once you deploy a platform, the key thing that becomes the issue is the integration part of it. How do I get the data out of the core and give it to you, Zafin, to be able to actually create new propositions and pricing innovation? And so that's why we moved towards creating a new platform, which is Zafin.io, that actually facilitates the way banks actually extract data and give it to us to be able to create the new proposition and the pricing. So this, what it does is it modernizes and simplifies the integration capabilities or the integration needs that banks need to do to be able to get and integrate Zafin into their overall product and pricing stack.
Could you give us an example? We have, of course, a wide variety of listeners, and I would love to understand what a product and a price means in this industry.
I love the question. So let me tell a different story. If you're walking down the street and you look at a store, you just typically just look at the store, you see a display, you see the lights, you have a beautiful store, which essentially is the UX or the UI, if you like, in the digital world. And it's made in such a way so that your eyes go in one direction or another, right? So, for example, even if you walk into a shoe store, typically you see men's shoes on one side, women's shoes on the other side, and it's always in the same side and whatnot. And that is all about guiding a customer through the journey of what they're going to buy. What we do is we're the platform that enables the bank to create the product that is placed on the shelf. So if you think about banking, how do you create a new product? How do you create a new pricing proposition? Well, you need a system to be able to create that. And so that's what Zafin does. It creates the product that a bank is able to sell into the market. It's the marketable product that you put on the shelf. The digital display is digital banking. That's where you have that customer journey, the onboarding journey, the servicing journeys, and all that. Right? Does that make sense?
Totally. And just my last follow up on this one is how has this changed with the rise of generative AI over the past couple of years? How have you incorporated it into this?
Yeah, so one key aspect of the concept of innovating from a product and pricing standpoint within banking is that there hasn't really been a focus on a innovation process within the bank. The innovation has been, well, I'm going to do something new from a front-end standpoint, from a display standpoint, but not from a product or pricing capability standpoint. So does a bank offer you today the capability to bundle products in such a way that I'm not just buying a mortgage, I'm buying a home, and that home needs a mortgage, but it also needs maybe home IoT, it needs a Netflix subscription, it needs a whole bunch of things that can be packaged up and sold from the bank perspective. And so one of the things that we've recently done, and this is brand new within the market, is we've started to use AI to be able to distill the information, the vast data sets within the industry, and distill all of that information so that product managers can actually understand better what potentially they need to build for their customers at the bank. So that distilling is, what is everybody else doing out there? And how does that distilling of information help me create a new canvas, a new proposition on a canvas that then is sold and executed in the market? So that's why we're using AI to distill information, to this essentially then create new products and propositions that then are executed on in the market.
That's awesome, Chris. I mean, I think back, I used to have a bunch of banks as accounts many, many years ago. And the one word that comes to mind, of course, is security. And of course, that's our number one priority as well here at Microsoft. Can you tell us what AI is bringing to the table on the security front?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're bang on. Security is prime in all this, and I think AI and the application of AI to security components is crucial within the most highly regulated industry on earth. And so, what we're doing within Zafin is obviously technology security is prime, and what we're doing is testing out new AI applications within the way how we operate internally at Zafin. So. Think about it as, how do we apply AI to continuous monitoring and automated auditing of what we do internally? How do we use NLP, natural language processing, for threat detection internally? How do we use AI for insider threat detection? So all these are components of the application of AI that essentially ultimately will bring benefits to our customers because it increases our security stance.
Thinking about just reflecting actually on the past few years, what is something that you go back and say, wow, I can't believe we delivered this, or I can't believe we've seen the financial industry deliver this? Do you have a short story to tell us to really inspire our listener to say, wow, this is really changing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the little bit of the story that I gave before about summarization of data. So we call that, our solution is called PPI, which is embedded within Zafin Studio. So think about this as, if I'm a bank and I want to innovate on a new product or proposition and the pricing thereof, I need to go through a phase of innovation or ideation, yeah? And so all of that in the industry has been over the years quite manual. Like I need to understand what my competition is doing. I need to have a team of data scientists to be able to distill a whole vast of data sets and information that is typically quite difficult to parse. Meaning, think about it as, okay, if one bank A does a checking account and it has these components, bank B does a checking account or package and it has these other components. But how do I compare these two things together? And what does that mean for me as a bank to innovate with my own product and pricing? And so what we did over the last year was create essentially Zafin Studio, which has PPI or product and pricing index within it, which effectively does that. It summarizes, it goes out into the market and summarizes vast data sets of what every single bank in the United States is doing, in North America is doing, for every single type of product, the price point, the components of it, and then distills that information for me as the bank user or the product manager within the bank to then say, okay, given this information, now how can I create a new proposition that's going to be distinct from what everybody else is doing in the market? And so we've applied AI in a couple of components within that index to essentially cut down massively the amount of teams that you need to be able to do this, and time to be able to come up with a new proposition, or at least an understanding of where the company, the bank needs to go from a new product and pricing perspective. So that would not have been possible like a year ago, would not have been possible.
That's incredible. So we just kind of talked about what you've done, but is there anything, that hasn't been done yet in the financial industry, but they're hoping for in the future, or anything you can give us a sneak peek into that you're working on?
Well, I won't give you a sneak peek, but I'll give you at least my thoughts, my personal thoughts. So I think, to be honest, we're at the tip of the iceberg. This is just a rudimentary way of applying AI in the industry today. We apply it to what is the product and pricing part of the equation, but the biggest applications you're seeing today is summarization of data for customer service at banks and in other industries, the same thing. But we really haven't cracked, I think, the full application of AI. I think partly that is because there's still things that need to be resolved, right? The application of AI into a industry that cannot deal with hallucination of the AI is of concern and has to be resolved. But there's ample potential of that in the future. Now, think about your own situations and your own personal situations. Like the financial services industry deals with two things: money at movement and money at rest. That's all it does. And so now when you think about your own homes, you say, well, I just got a mortgage or I've got my accounts, but think broader than that. Everything that comes in and out of your home is what I call a data stream. You've got a data stream for your gas, your data stream for your electric bills. That's just data. Okay, there's a utilization of it, but there's data coming in and out of your home, right? The supermarket bill is data. And so when you start to think about it, all of these data streams have money applied to them, either money at rest or money in movement. So the question is, how can I bring all of these things together to improve the livelihoods of the people who live within the house? How can I use that data with AI to essentially uncover situations or benefits for the persons who live in there? Can I help the person reduce their electric bill? Can I help them identify that maybe their washing machine is about to clunk out? So there are many things that can be done. And then, by the way, can I give you a loan for that washing machine, right? So there are many things that if it's a data stream and you understand what's going on with that data, then you can start to innovate from a product and pricing standpoint, from a bank product pricing standpoint. So the application of this is massive. We're just scratching the surface.
What a way to take us to the end of our conversation. If you hear about a peer maybe listening that is now super excited because of all these stories that you've shared, Chris, what advice would you give him? And specifically if they are thinking about an idea in this sector and they hear, well, it's just the tip of the iceberg, I want to innovate. What would your advice be?
I would say it's pretty simple, right? For anything that you do on this, it's like focus on the customer, like the end customer, right? So if you focus on the end customer, what are you going to bring to them? What problem are you going to resolve for them? Then there's always something to resolve for them. Now the question is, once you uncover that, how do you apply AI to it? And to what is the business case for that, right? There's always has to be that business case. And then when you resolve those two things, you pretty much have resolved it for yourself, for the bank. But focus on the customer, focus on the customer, focus on the customer. The end customer, I think, is a key point.
I really don't think there's any better way to end it than saying focus on the customer. So, Chris, thank you so much for your time today, your incredible expertise, and all the insight that you've shared with us and our partner ecosystem around the financial industry.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, guys.
And stay tuned because we now have our first ever post-game show. We have our go-to-market teammate, Ryan Blakely. He's actually celebrating 15 years at Microsoft. And for the past 8, Ryan has been working on joint go-to-market with partners that are specifically focused on the financial services industry. Ryan, welcome to No Slides Attached.
Hey, Ryan, welcome. Tell us, what did you think about the conversation with Zafin?
Oh my gosh, Helene, I found the conversation with Zafin and Chris just really inspiring. Really how he was talking about how technology can reduce time to market, increase that ease to market, but doing so in a way that is impactful. And the statement of, customer focus really, really resonated. And I think that's especially true in financial services and selling technology into financial services in today's environment, is that we really need to listen to the customer, focus on that customer, and drive this new innovation with the customer at the center. And so hearing that level of focus there, I think was truly inspiring. The other thing that I really liked was the storytelling component, making it real, making it actionable, and taking what is often complex, scenarios and situations and putting them into more simplistic terms, putting them into real terms, whether it's real monetization channels for a financial institution or real impact for an end customer. And I think some of the cases that he gave for homeowners and how we can kind of come together from a financial institution to a customer in those ways that benefits both is truly inspiring. I think, really helps underscore the importance of where technology fits in our world today and especially in financial services market.
Ryan, I'm going to say something that's going to be super obvious to you, but it definitely wasn't obvious to me as I was preparing and might not be obvious for our listener. When we talk about financial services, we talked a lot about banking with Zafin, but in reality, financial services really encompasses more than that. It encompasses insurance, it encompasses capital markets. So as a whole, where do you see the biggest opportunities and why?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think it's important that we think about these subverticals in financial services as distinct entities. While there are some similarities in how we at Microsoft think about some of these industries, there's some commonalities. We'll talk, maybe around, improving, customer engagement. That might be something that a bank would be thinking about. But improving that client engagement is a slight nuance, but again, more focused on the capital market side or the wealth side, if you will. And then how do you improve that policyholder experience? Again, more focused on the insurance. And so the customer, again, in that example is at the center, but there's nuance in how these technologies and how we're working with our partners to help tell those stories specific to those subverticals. So it is an important call out because there is definitely some unique attributes there. From kind of what's top of mind around these opportunities for innovation, I think Chris talked a lot about some of them. For sure, it's this modernization of legacy systems. So, I think one of the big opportunities that we have today in the financial services space is the idea of modernization. These legacy systems that financial institutions are running, Chris mentioned 40, 50 years old. That's very, very true, very real, very antiquated technology, big mainframes, old legacy applications, siloed data. And so that modernization component is extremely important as you think about, as financial institutions, kind of think about continuing to needing to grow, needing to be flexible and agile to meet market demands, and create some of those new revenue streams and going forward in today's age. Another aspect that's very tightly connected to this modernization component that is a huge opportunity today across all three subverticals is the need to migrate. So if I'm a financial institution and wanting to upgrade my apps, well, gosh, I might need to upgrade and migrate my underlying data structure to manage those and to take full advantage of the opportunities that those systems have. And we at Microsoft, we're obviously very excited and passionate about our cloud, our data centers, and how we can help our customers with our partners move and migrate that data in a very connected and secure way. And of course, the biggest topic, if I think of innovation that everybody's talking about now, and this modernization and the migration play is almost table stakes as we think about the largest opportunity ahead, which is really around the idea of AI, Gen AI, and some of the Copilot components that we have out there.
Thanks, Ryan. We heard Zafin talk about their AI-powered solution that they've built, but this industry really touches everyone, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the opportunity for the individual? How is AI really empowering the financial services professional to do more, at their jobs?
Yeah, no, it's a really important question, and I think that AI and technology for the individual worker, for the knowledge worker, for those frontline workers, it really stems around the notion of productivity, and how do we continue to enhance the productivity that these workers have, improve their decision making real time, and empower them to put that customer first and engage in a meaningful way. Maybe I'll tell a little bit of a story, a great success story that we're super proud of at Microsoft, and I know that our shared, our customer partner in this case, Moody's, is really excited about as well. And I think encapsulates great way or great answer to the question that we're talking about here. So obviously Moody's has been around for a long time, 100-plus-year-old data publisher and research firm. And through work with Microsoft and us coming together, they've created a Copilot, an internal tool that is taking all 14,000 employees and enhancing that level of productivity, bringing together their core research, bringing together their core data, putting that in a way that can be analyzed and utilized real time, and putting it inside of an environment like Teams that continues to that will obviously increase and help the productivity of those employees. And so I think this story is just a microcosm of exactly how technology is really coming to bear, not only in that speed to innovation, but also how it is empowering those specific individuals. Again, you think about sort of this legacy data company, an analytics company that is now at the cutting edge of technology, that has empowered 14,000 people to be better and more productive in their job, leveraging this technology specific to financial services. And I think what's great about that too is that in addition to that productivity empowerment that they've been given, now they're also looking at new ways. What other resources can we leverage and integrate? What other third party or external data sources can we bring into that, again, to enhance and increase the productivity and the decision making of those frontline workers. Again, all for the benefit of their shared customers, you and me and everyone else who's procuring and buying those services and solutions to obviously better manage and enrich our lives. So really exciting, I think technology and great to see those things manifest in a way where you've got Microsoft, and in this case Moody's, coming together to do just that and empower those frontline workers.
That's fantastic. think you just put the cherry on top of the inspiration, which is the ultimate vision that we have for this podcast conversations. I also see that whether it's the individual with this Moody's example or the story from Safin, there's never been a lack of data or lack of information in the financial industry. It's more of like, how do we take advantage of this massive amount of data to be smarter, to achieve more? So thank you for closing the circle here. And this is, as we head to the end of our conversation, if this were a presentation that we were giving, you would probably put up a slide with 100 resources and maybe overwhelm a partner or two when they're just getting started. We unfortunately don't have that here at No Slides Attached, Ryan. So only your words will be retained. We can't put some on the show notes, of course, but we'd love to know if you had to give our listener one piece of advice or one resource or where to go next, what would that be?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and in today's market and how quickly financial institutions need to adapt, how they need to change, how they have to innovate at the pace of the current market is a lot. And it can be overwhelming. I mean, gosh, think of a financial institution who's trying to mitigate risk at every turn, now working to bring in new technology and innovation and some of these cutting edge things that may be perceived as potentially introducing risk into their organization. And so, from an advice perspective, I think, steal a little bit more from Moody's and from Chris as well. The advice perspective as it relates to kind of innovating at the current pace that the market is demanding is put your customer first. 100%. Think about those cases. Where can we come together to help that customer just move a little bit? I think that's first and foremost. Secondly, is just continue to evolve and push the boundaries of technology, push the boundaries of what you think might be possible, and then of course think about your people. And how can we bring together and help our employees kind of work faster in today's market? AI is not a human replacer; it's a human enhancer, and this is especially true in the financial services space across a myriad of front office and back office opportunities and ways in which our the financial institution employees are engaging with their customers, and so a great way to come together. I think. The other thing that I might say is just really keep it simple. Understand what you're good at. Understand what your customer really wants and where that impact lies, and give yourself some meaningful goals and some milestones, and make sure that you're checking in. They don't have to be big, monolithic, multi-year projects. Think smaller. Think steps, think innovation workshops, internal and with your customer, to focus on what is really achievable in the near term. We didn't talk a ton about use cases already, and there's a myriad of use cases out there, and I think that's what gets makes this overwhelming. Is there's so many ideas. There's no shortage of ideas on how AI, how Copilot, how these different technologies can actually show up, manifest, and bring value inside of a financial institution. The key is to distill those down into ones that have the most impact, and focus on those and make some baby steps. That could be code development or migration. It could be, document authoring or retention. It could be fraud detection. There's a claims, underwriting. There's a host of different, compliant ways in which we can leverage this technology in some of those small baby steps. And maybe I'll just close with just a real quick story on sort of this advice perspective. I had the opportunity to sit down with a number of CEOs and CFOs and COOs at some of the largest and mid-sized and smaller financial institutions across the country. And the common theme or story that they told me when we're talking about technology is we're so excited about AI, we started a task force. We've got a task force and we're going to innovate. And when you start to ask more of those questions about, well, what are those milestones? What objectives are you trying to accomplish? What is the next phase? There wasn't clear direction or knowledge because it was such a big topic. So I think boiling it down to your customer need, understanding your customer, focusing on that moment, taking some of those baby steps to move forward, this can be an amazing opportunity to create those new products, create those new pricing needs that Zafin talked about, and introduce those into the market to delight the financial institutions' customers.
Wow, Ryan, so much goodness in there, but I love how you ended, just as Chris did from Zafin, on focus on your customer, right? And simplify. I think those are two really super important things. So thank you, Ryan, for joining us today. Thank you for representing the financial industry here at Microsoft so well, and for such a long period of time. We know you know it inside and out. So again, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for attending today. No slides attached. Stay tuned for our next upcoming episode, which will be around the education industry.
Thank you all.
We hope today's conversations have ignited fresh perspectives and inspired you to take new opportunities in this changing landscape of AI.
Stay tuned for more insights and stories on No Slides Attached. Be sure to listen in and follow us at noslidesattached.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.